All right, so welcome back to another episode of the podcast featuring your host, Philip Wells. And again, the is an acronym that stands for Therapy Helps Everyone. And today we actually have a special guest. I'm very excited about today's episode. It's someone that I go back, I want to say we met maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago through an organization that none of us are a part of. But it led to our great, connection, which I'm so grateful for. So today's episode is about mental health and entrepreneurs. And this is really getting into the meat of my show. Like, I want to show how mental health helps teachers, entrepreneurs, therapists, right? All therapists should have a therapist, athletes, but also, if we can take across the board to whether you're Black, white, Caribbean, African, Asian, a teenager, even we have some people as young as, 5, 6, 7 years old in therapy. And there's people as old as, 70, 80, 90 years old in therapy. So therapy, but truly mental health truly does help everyone. And that is the purpose of the show. So I'm so grateful to have the Coach Seneca Williams with us today. I'm so excited. And the thing about Seneca, here's a little bio about her. So Seneca Williams, she is also, as I said, known as Ask Coach Sen or Coach Sen. And she's a therapist, but specifically, she's an entrepreneur therapist, right? And she works specifically with women who want to be entrepreneurs, but don't let that stop you. If you're a guy like myself, you could definitely see Coach Sen as well. She's an online therapist. She's a speaker. She is an international coach for entrepreneurs that helps their clients that are ready to break through their business anxiety and beat business burnout so that they can improve their confidence by selling online, which at the end of the day, it improves their bottom line. So Sen is all about helping you guys to break through that wall that many of you guys are probably experiencing to truly live that life that you want to live. But also what's great about Seneca is that she has this community that she's building. She's the founder of a network called the Conquer Network, which is an online membership community. And the mission is to provide a mental health positive community space for women entrepreneurs to cultivate mental wealth and to conquer their business. So with that being said, Seneca, if I missed anything, please clarify. Please feel free to introduce yourself, so on and so forth.
That was a great introduction. Thank you. That sounds really good. Hearing it from someone that actually knows me. So it's like you're not just reading it, you're saying these things because you know.
Exactly. And actually, before we really get into it, and this will come up later, I remember one day we sat down and it was me. You probably remember. It was me, you, and a friend of yours, and we sat down, and I was kind of, beginning my way as an entrepreneur, right? And you kind of gave me some great advice, and we're gonna tap into that a little bit later. But it was truly inspirational, and it changed my whole view on how I just saw life. So we'll definitely get into that later. But before we get started, I just kind of want you, because you are also a life coach, right? And a lot of people, they don't know the difference between a life coach and a therapist. So I want to hear from you, and for the audience to hear from you, what is the difference between a life coach and an entrepreneur?
That's a good question, because what I've noticed, as you probably have noticed, is people are trying to use therapy and coaching interchangeably. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and just get a coach because with a coach, there's less stigma associated. There's less mental health stigma, and they're probably going to find one that's cheaper than going to a therapist or whatever the reason. But some people figure, I feel anxious, I feel depressed, I can just get a coach and use a coach. No, they're not the same thing. And it really has to do with those who understand mental health and those who don't. So when we're talking about mental health is on a spectrum. We can be anywhere on that spectrum, on that continuum. There's actually a chart people can Google to see where they are. I'm not telling you to diagnose yourself, but you can see what I'm talking about. We're all on this mental health continuum. So somewhere on this continuum, you are mentally healthy, you're mentally reacting, you're mentally ill, right? You're going all this way through from the beginning to the end. Now, if you are on this spectrum, right, and you are at mentally ill on this spectrum, you should not be going to see a coach. because now that is a mental health disorder that needs to be diagnosed and treated by a professional who went to school for several years, had to take an exam and do internships to be trained to treat a mental health disorder to help you with those symptoms. So that's the easiest thing that I could say to people. And sometimes I tell them like think about it like this. You go to a therapist when you have a mental health issue. Okay. So if you're feeling like, okay, I have a lot of anxiety, depression, I'm not functioning the way that I used to, then you go there, right? And you get diagnosed and you get a treatment plan. But if it's like, I just feel stuck, I have goals, I'm confused about how to lose weight in a healthy way, or I have goals to start a business, or I have goals to just be a more positive person, then you go to a coach. So you got goals, you go to a coach. So that's the best way that I've explained it to people so they can understand.
Gotcha. You know, and when you said that mental illness part, my mind went straight to things that are on the kind of like the serious end, like the schizophrenia, the bipolar, borderline, things of that nature, even major depressive disorder. And those are things that not only maybe a therapist, but a psychiatrist as well would, definitely would need to step in and provide them that help. So thank you for clearing that up. I really appreciate it. So with that being said, I wanted you to kind of like start off and tell us, like, how did you start your business? And well, also let's do this. Tell us about your business. Tell us more about it. I know I gave some like highlights, but kind of tell us more about what you do, who you work with, things like that.
Okay, great. Yeah, you did give a wonderful introduction. So I have an online therapy practice. I actually have been online since 2015. So back then people were like, what's online therapy? That sounds weird. How does that work? That's kind of funny. But this year, more than ever, I have gotten so many referrals from not only like clients, but from therapists. Like, how do you do this? How do you set this up? How does this work? How do you find clients? So I've been doing online therapy for a while. So that's one of my strong, areas. I have done person-to-person, face-to-face therapy, but I am 100% online. So that's important for people to know when they reach out to me. So I've been doing online therapy, and I realized that most of my clients were professionals. They had degrees, like maybe a law degree, PhDs, MDs, or they were pursuing higher education. And a lot of them were dealing with anxiety. They were dealing with depression, but it was wrapped up into their wanting to achieve certain goals for their career. Now, after working with this population for a while, because at one point I really just focused on careers and career development, and I actually had a show called Career Therapy with Seneca Williams. It's still out there on YouTube. Now I don't do that show anymore. But what was interesting is a lot of those clients that I was working with, they would say, oh, by the way, I got this business. Or by the way, I'm starting a business. Or by the way, how do you do this? And I found that I was helping them with entrepreneurship. And for me, entrepreneurship is one of those things that just motivates me and it makes me happy. Like you shared earlier, I sat with you and talked with you, I don't know, for hours. I think about your business, because for me, when someone says, I want to start a business, I want to be an entrepreneur. And I'm talking about like a real entrepreneur, like you want to develop something, you want to birth something. That's what it's exciting. It's like you're having a baby and I want to help you have this baby. So that became the focus. And then people started sending, others to me. And I guess I was vocal about my entrepreneurship and people saw how I was developing as well. Entrepreneurship for me, though, wasn't something that I was born thinking about. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about being a therapist or a coach. It really just came from experience and exploration. So I always thought I was going to become an attorney. I was pursuing law. Around 2008, there was a huge, recession, lots of layoffs. At that time, I was working in the legal field at a very prominent law firm in New York City. I went on vacation and came back to no job.
Wow.
Imagine that.
A lot of people are going through that right now, actually. Yeah, so they can relate. They can definitely relate.
So when I came back to no job, instantly I felt relief, which most people wouldn't think. I was scared, but I felt relief because I didn't really like law. It was almost like if you're dating someone and they dump you and you're like, okay, well, that's cool because, you know, I was
Gotcha.
like, okay. But then there was a lot of confusion about, okay, so what am I going to do now? I always love psychology. Just as much as I love entrepreneurship, I love psychology. Like I can talk about the mind and human behavior. I could talk about that for hours. So I did have an undergraduate degree in psychology and I minored in political science. So I went back to psychology and I actually had to work from the ground up and, you know, started my mental health career, went back for a master's. And when I went back to school for mental health counseling and I got the master's, I don't know that I thought about having a private practice at that time. I just wanted to be a therapist, but I didn't know that I wanted to be in private practice. Because for me, if you are a therapist in private practice, you've probably been practicing for 30, 40 years. You had gray hair. You were pretty old. That's my vision of a therapist with a private practice. So, you know, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to, you know, try out all these different areas of mental health. I worked in every different setting from, you know, private practice settings to the general mental health agency. I work with all kinds of different populations, but I realized I really liked private practice. I liked that. And I really enjoyed working with professionals and talking about their careers and talking about work-life balance and how that fit in and their mental health and their conditioned beliefs about success. I really enjoyed that. So how I became an entrepreneur really was from being laid off again from one of these places. And when I got laid off that time, I said, this will never happen to me again. I actually said that. I am never going to be laid off from a job again without an income stream of my own. I need to control my own coins. And I actually said that. And that's where it began. In 2015, I went and registered myself. I didn't know anything at all about entrepreneurship. No business courses, nothing. I just took that leap of faith and I was like, this is it.
Gotcha. You know, what's so funny about what you said was that one, you went through a failure. You went through not even a failure. You just went through adversity, right? And you were able to turn that adversity, right, into something that was beneficial, to, you know, for you, your career, so on and so forth, right? And a lot of us, we call that leveraging, right? Being able to leverage things that you already know, possess, so on and so forth, into a skill or service that you can provide on an hourly basis, right? And I think what you're doing with the Conquer Network is great because now you're taking things up to another level, which I think is great. So any woman that is listening to this podcast, please check out the Conquer Network. You can check out her her website, www.senecawilliams.com, and be sure to join that. But in addition to that, you niche down, right? Which is something that is so important because we have this idea that we want to cast our net far and wide to catch all the little fishies, but no, there's enough fishes in this little pond with this little net where you could definitely survive off of. And when you're ready, you can definitely expand upon that. So to be honest, I've been living out here for this is my 4th year. I do not know one person who provides help, therapy, so on and so forth for women entrepreneurs. And you are that person, but yet everyone is trying to create a business, which is why it's so important to niche down, such as the way you're doing, right? Like that is so crucial. And that's one of the tips I want to tell people. You know, don't be afraid to niche down and start small and work your way up. As Seneca, as you said, you didn't think this was going to be the path that you were going to go on, but eventually things started to come in place, right? It's this idea that if you take one step forward, you know, the universe hopefully would take a step forward towards you, or maybe even 2 steps towards you. But we have to be willing to take that first step. So everything that you said, oh man, it was wonderful. Like, I hope a lot of people can take away from the things that you went through in order to, you know, become, you know, Seneca, Coach Sen, so on and so forth. So I want to talk a little bit more about, not what, but, a little bit about the clientele that you work with those women. And I wanted to see if there's anything that you notice that's different working with women versus working with men, because, I'm just throwing things out there, so excuse my ignorance. Women obviously have families, they have kids, right? I know a lot of women are probably, listen to this podcast. You probably have a lot of women who say, I have a husband, I have kids. I have to, take care of this, take care of that. Like, how do I become an entrepreneur? So what would you say to the women, and then maybe even some of the things that maybe women have gone through that may be a little bit different from men?
Okay. You're right. There is a bit of a difference, and it comes with our conditioned beliefs. And this is something that you can hire business coaches to help you with branding, marketing, systems, whatever it is. But if you don't address your core beliefs about who you are and your conditioned beliefs, what you were taught as a child growing up, or what you learned in school, because our education system is not teaching us to be entrepreneurs, it's teaching us to be employees, right? Mm-hmm. It's teaching us to be team members, not necessarily leaders. So all of these things have to shift. And then when it comes to working with women and men, little girls have been trained and conditioned to grow up to become wives and mothers. Children are given these toys. Here, it's a baby doll, and as you're a teenager, you have to be a good wife. This is what you do. And there's like this internal battle, even for the careerpreneurs that I work with, of, can I do both? Is it okay for me to have both? Can I have a career and a business and a family? Or do I have to trade one for the other? And there's a lot of guilt associated with that. Lots of guilt. So questions that women entrepreneurs might ask, like, is this okay? Like, I'm looking to have a husband and kids one day. Can I also have a business? Men don't necessarily ever ask those questions when I work with them. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Right?
Agreed.
Like, so there are different kinds of questions and different challenges that they both have. But it all comes back to core beliefs, conditioned beliefs about yourself, what you learned about being an entrepreneur. So when it comes to women, what I have to help them to do is not to see things in all or nothing thinking, which is something that you work on in therapy. Not to see things as black and white, like I can have this or that. How can I have all of this together? How can I make this work? And there was actually a mom that I worked with a few years ago. We only had a few sessions, but she was a full-time employee. She worked as an attorney. She had 2 small children and a husband. And, she was juggling life. And one of her main challenges was, I have this love for travel. I want to have a business in travel. But how do I do all of this? Do I quit my job as an attorney? I can't do that. I have a mortgage. I have a family. I cannot quit my job. And we were like, well, maybe you don't have to quit your job, right? Because think about this. If you have a job and you think to have another job, you don't think I have to quit my job to have that second job. You just think about, well, what hours can I do that second job? Oh, I'll do it on the weekends. Or I'll do it 3 times a week. I'll do it on Mondays and Wednesdays, right? So it was like shifting her mindset, that it was like, oh, wait, it's just like having a second job. What days and times am I going to do that second job? And then bringing your family on board, like, hey, husband, this is what I want to do. This is how it's going to benefit our family, because men need to know, like, women are emotional. So they'll be like, this is my dream and my passion. And men are like, okay, are you going to make money? Like, what does this mean for us? How much is it going to cost? So I also teach women in those situations, like, how do you have this conversation with your husband so he buys in? And her husband is bought in. And if you go on My Cruising Family, just putting that plug out there because I'm so proud of her, you will see that in the past few years, she's just been flourishing so much. And she's found a way to balance both her love of travel and still carry on her career as a full-time attorney and full-time mom.
Gotcha. Man, that's awesome. That is awesome. As a matter of fact, I want you to kind of tell the audience and the listeners what was some of her feedback once she's gotten to that point, because I assume she has gotten back to you. She may have said, thank you, this has changed my life. Like, what is some of that feedback that you get from some of the people that you work with that they've accomplished their goals and now they're truly entrepreneurs?
So the main thing is, and actually, if you went on Ask Coach Sen on my Facebook on Ask Coach Sen, she actually wrote a review on there, very nice long review on there about her experience, and she wrote that a few years ago when we worked together. The main thing that I get when I get reviews from all my clients is, you helped me break through a deep, paralyzing fear that I had. I'm helping them rewire their thinking. I'm helping them believe that they can do something they thought that they could never do. I'm helping them actually take action on things that they've just been dreaming about. So they actually start implementing it, because I break it down so simple that it's like, why can't you do this? Don't you do this for your boss and more? Right? Why can't you do this for yourself? It's like, you're right. I do this and more for my boss. I can do this for myself. Right? And
Amen.
then I also help them with that. Now you can be the star employee and you can be employee of the month every month. But as an entrepreneur, you're taking front stage, you're in the spotlight, and all the responsibility is on you. So I also have to help them build that self-efficacy, that they are qualified, they are equipped, and they can manage it.
Gotcha. Man, when you spoke about core beliefs, right? I tell people in my sessions all the time, core beliefs are like a pair of glasses that you use to see, right? If the glasses are dark, things are going to be perceived dark, even though they're not, right? If my glasses are the wrong prescription, I may see things a little bit more fuzzier than what they truly look like. But when you get that right set of lenses, right, by going to a therapist, by seeing Coach Sen, once you get that right pair of glasses, you can truly see things a lot clearer. And I think that's what's happening for a lot of people that come and see you. Once you start to open their brains little by little, taking them out of that black or white thinking, that dichotomous thinking that I can either be this or that, they see the world in a whole totally different space, right? And from there, they can start to be that entrepreneur that they truly desire, right? A lot of people, they're living incongruent lives. And that's what I tell people. I actually told a few people in a few sessions, right now you're being very incongruent. You're being very unauthentic to the life that you want to live, right? If you want to be an entrepreneur and have your own business, then working for someone else isn't, that's not the thing. So as a result, you're going to go to work angry. You're going to go to work stressed out. And when your boss asks you to send this email, you may just spaz for no reason, right? Like you may really just spaz for no reason. And it's because you're not being congruent. You're not being authentic to yourself. And one can argue that is what self-love truly is, right? Self-love isn't pampering yourself, right? It can be a part of it. But self-love is putting yourself first, putting your needs first, and giving yourself every opportunity possible to achieve the things that you want to achieve in life. That's how I consider what self-love is. So you touched on something, and I wanted to go back to it. You have a lot of people, even myself. Like I'm still in this stage myself, but I'm working to break out of it. A lot of people are working 9 to 5s, right? And they are stellar employees, right? But when it comes to their own business and their own ideas, they get paralyzed. And I think it's because they are now front stage, right? And one thing that she really like to work with people about is this term called imposter syndrome. And a lot of people, they get stuck with that. And I kind of want you to kind of explain what imposter syndrome is for those who may not know what it is, but then also how do they break through it? And you probably hit on a few of these things, but what is imposter syndrome and how do people break through it?
Imposter syndrome is such a wild phenomenon, right? Because usually the people that have it are the most successful people you sometimes know. When I come across people who are like, I have 2 master's degrees, I have a PhD in this, I'm the director of this program, I'm whatever. And then when it comes to talking about their own business, they're like, I feel like an imposter. And you're like, what? So imposter syndrome is not about not feeling like it's not about the achievements that you have, not having achievements. You can actually have achievements and you can actually have success. It's more about the feeling that you have about it. It's the feeling you have about it. And when you go in and question some of these women and you're like, okay, well, why do you feel like this? Well, I always got A's in school, or, this seems easy for me, or I just got lucky, it was just the right time. They can feel kind of like they don't have control over it. It just happened. So it's helping people to, one, identify like you are making this happen and you can make it happen in your business. So there's that part. But sometimes I'll ask people straight up, like, are you an imposter? Because, like, if you are an imposter, right? And that leads to impression management, which is another term that I often work on with clients, right? Impression management is when you want to show up looking a certain way, right? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like the entrepreneurs that are like, I'm making all this money and I'm going shopping and I got all this stuff, bling, bling, bling. But behind the scenes, they might have made $20 if even, right? So sometimes I ask people straight up, are you an imposter? Because you're going to have imposter syndrome. So, if that's not the case, right, then we talk about impression management and I start finding out, okay, well, are you probably not paying attention to what your strengths are and you're just focusing on your weaknesses in business? Because that's going to make you feel like an imposter. Like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do that. I don't understand that thing. I don't understand that thing. So, I feel like I'm going to be an imposter. And I then kind of disarm them and I tell them, you should not know how to do everything in your business. You did not go to school to learn how to do everything in your business. And that's okay. You should not be trying to show that, right? Impression management is trying to control what people believe about you. So I tell everybody the truth. If you want me to talk about entrepreneurs and business, cool. If you're asking me to talk about sales tactic and business systems and certain things, I'm going to be like, that's not my lane. Kind of like in therapy, that's out of my scope. I will tell you straight up, like, that's not my lane, but I know people who can help you with that for your business, because I want you to make money. And even for myself, I've hired people to teach me certain things in business. So I don't feel that imposter syndrome anymore that I used to, because I worked on my strengths and highlighted those and got help for my weaknesses. And I didn't try to pretend like I know how to do everything.
Gotcha. I never heard of impression management. That's a great one. I'm actually going to look that up after this show. But yeah, I think a lot of people, they fall victim to that, and I think social media has only added to that, right? Has fanned that flame, the person that gets up at 2 a.m. and texts or shows a picture, oh, I'm grinding, and then they go back to sleep, right? Like, we have people out there like that, impression management, right? So all that stuff, I mean, it just goes back to focusing on your strengths, as you mentioned, right? And even in therapy, we call that strengths-based work in a sense, right? So, no, great points. So what I want to do is I want to take it all the way back. I'm going to put the training wheels back on, just for the people that's listening, because there's probably a few people out there that's thinking, like, how do I get started? What should I do, right? Like, I have this great idea, but, I don't know what the first step is, right? And I think a lot of times people are looking at the whole enchilada, right? Versus just looking at just one small thing that they can do. So if someone were to come into your office or virtually and ask you, what is the first thing that I can do to start my business? What would you say to them?
I usually ask them, why do you want to start a business?
It is. Mm-hmm. And it's so simple, because a lot of people think, oh, I get to have all the free time in the world, but that is not the case as an entrepreneur. Like, you're going to work your butt off to be an entrepreneur, right? So, yeah. So why they want to start a business? Yeah. So let's say they say, I want financial freedom. I want to control my own life. I want to be able to, do what I want, so on and so forth. Like, what would be the next thing that you would say to them? Even if, let's say, if they're a therapist, right? Let's say someone that works in like a service, like job or something like that, a per hour service. Like, what would you say to those people?
So if someone gave an answer like that and they said, I want financial freedom, I then ask them to go deeper. Like, I really want to know, is this person going to be serious? A lot of people have approached me over the years saying they wanted to start a business, and some did and some did not, because their mindset, what they thought about entrepreneurship. So they thought, I'm going to start a business because I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to open my doors and all these clients are going to come in and I'm going to be rich. And it doesn't work like that. Like, only if you're like a McDonald's or, a Walmart can you just open your doors and people just flood in and give you money. Like, it really takes a lot of work when you're just starting out, and no one knows who you are. They don't know you. They don't trust you. So they're not going to be flocking to you and throwing money at you. So it's kind of like figuring out, do you know why you want to have a business? So if you're saying financial freedom, which is a great thing to say, it's like, okay, what does financial freedom look like for you, right? What are you going to do with that financial freedom? So using myself for an example, I like financial freedom, but when I look at financial freedom, it means that I have opportunity so that I can create more opportunities for myself. It means that I have flexibility, and it also means that I can give back the way that I want to. But when I think of financial freedom, it's not just so I can go on vacations or buy nice clothes, right? It's way bigger than me. So it's like trying to tap into why that person wants to start a business. What kind of business are you starting? Why do you want to start that business? I'll tell you a little story. I actually work with someone very, very briefly that wanted help with their business, only to come to find out after 3 meetings, they didn't like what they were selling.
Right.
You're not going to be successful in business if you started a business that you don't even like or you don't believe in it. So are you selling things that you can back up, that you really believe in it, that you like it, that you use it, that like, is this for real? So it's like, I ask them these things. What are you selling? Why are you selling it? What's the purpose for business? So start asking yourself these questions. You can journal this stuff down, right? What is my point in doing this? Some people hop into business because all their friends have a business. Some people start a business because they are having hard times. They can't find a job. They're having hard times. Someone approaches them with a business opportunity. They jump on that business opportunity, little bit of investment, little bit of time. You know what I'm talking about? You don't have to really work. You don't need experience, just a little bit of money and you're going to be rich. So they hop into business for these reasons. And then they're like, why am I failing? Why isn't it working? So it's like checking in with yourself emotionally. So after you do that, right, if you've done all this mental work and this emotional work, which I think that's where you should really start, checking in with yourself. Why are you doing what you're doing? Is it because you just don't like your boss, or you don't know what else to do with your life? Once you get solid on that, then I would say if you have a good service idea or a good product idea, before you go throwing in all your money into that, I would tell you to do some research on that service or that product and test it and then get feedback. So if you want to, I don't know, do hair, before you go open a hair shop, start figuring out, okay, in this neighborhood that I'm in, I'll give an example, like if you do locks or braids, right? In this neighborhood, or depending on where you want to put this shop, or if you're going to go to people's homes, find out, do people want locks in that area? Or are they wearing lace front wigs, right? So do some research about, the people you want to sell to, and then test it, do some heads of hair and see what the people say. Do they like it? Are they going to give you good reviews? Are they going to refer people to you? And if you do that for a while, you can be like, you know what, this is legitimately going to be a good business. Then you go out there and you start up the business. One of the ways that I suggest people do that is a passion project. That's how I actually kind of practice being an entrepreneur. I had a passion project back in 2012. It was a mom's group. It was called Hot Milk, Heroic, Outstanding, Triumphant Mom You'd Like to Know. And it was for moms to meet with their kids and get together. And we talked to each other about motherhood and we took our kids on trips. So, what that allowed me to do was practice entrepreneurship. I had to market it. I had to brand it. I had to organize events. I had to plan events. I had to follow up with people. So it kind of taught me in a way some of the things that I use now in my business. So don't jump into the deep end if you can't swim.
Yeah.
Start at the shallow end. Learn to swim before you get to the deep end.
Gotcha. And for those people that are listening, like there is something to be said for those people who do things for free, right? Starting off and doing things, not expecting a dime for anything, but just doing things for free. Get your feet wet, build those connections, right? Before you start charging people for a product that is just not proven yet, right? People want to know, like, who have you worked with? What journals or what organizations has featured you, right? Like people want to know what are they paying for, and that's what you're getting at also with the Walmarts, the McDonald's, because it's a franchise. When I go in McDonald's, I know they're going to have the same fries that this other McDonald's down on 6th Street is going to have, right? There's something to be said about those people doing things for free. So when you start your business, everyone that's listening, like hear to the words that Coach Sen is saying, like do a passion project, right? Go out there and research what is it that your customers are looking for? What is it that your competitors are not doing, or a place where you can consider as a weakness for your competitors, right? Not many therapists are having podcasts, right? That's a place for me to jump in, right? Not many life coaches are having Conquer networks, so communities that they're building. But also not even many entrepreneurs are niching themselves down to women, as we mentioned, right? There are so many opportunities. And I heard this at an organization a few years ago, and it was like 2018. So I'm gonna just change it up a little bit. In 2020, you can still be the first. In 2020, you can still be the first, right? In 2020, you can still create something where you are the first person in that market, right? It can be done, but you have to do the research, right? Everyone wants to make those impressions and do X, Y, and Z. Like we'll get there in time, but you have to put in that work. And it's really just the small steps, right? Being able to do something for free is something that's very, very crucial. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about, so you talked a little bit about investing, and here's the thing about a business. Like you can't have a scarcity mindset and be an entrepreneur. Those two things, they just don't mix, right? Maybe they do somewhere, but I haven't come across it. So can you tell the audience, about that abundance mindset and that scarcity mindset, and maybe even tell us about how you've invested in your brand, right? As you mentioned, you've invested into your mindset. How do entrepreneurs, or what should entrepreneurs think about when it comes to, those mindsets?
So this is a shift, and it's a huge shift because most people grew up with parents who are employees and they've been employees themselves most of their lives. So they don't understand certain things, how it works. And this is even for myself. And I think for a lot of us, I know you probably have a diverse group here, but you also probably have those of us who are Black entrepreneurs. We didn't grow up learning about how entrepreneurship works. So we're trying to bootstrap and fund our own businesses where sometimes other cultures, races, other people are getting investors or getting grants or getting funding or crowdfunding, getting money that way. They're getting money to do certain things and invest in their business. So like that's a whole nother conversation, but we're trying to bootstrap. However, here's the thing. When you're just starting out, if you do a passion project, that's cool. But when you start saying that you want to charge people $1,000, you want to charge people $5,000 for something, right? Or if you're doing products, you have a product that you want to sell and you're like, oh, I'm going to, put $50 on this, right? People are expecting a certain level of quality. So if you're not investing in packaging that looks like that thing should be $50 or $100, why should they invest $50 or $100 if you're cutting corners with that, or even the ingredients or the material or whatever? Like, why should they give you that much money, right? When it comes to service, I'll use myself specifically for an example. I do therapy online and I do coaching. However, for my therapy clients, it's very important that I use a video platform that is HIPAA compliant, so I protect their privacy. And it's a service that I pay for to make sure they get that quality experience and the privacy that is required, because mental health is health, So we need to protect people's private health information. Those who are in the medical field know what that is. Now, I could easily be like, yeah, I do online therapy. Hit me up on WhatsApp. Are you going to want to give me $100, $200 an hour, right? Probably you will, you won't. I don't know, but I know for me and my clientele that I work with, they're probably not. They might not. They want to know that I've spent money and I've thought about what works best for them, and they spend money for that. So before you go out here thinking, why won't people pay my prices? Are you trying to get all the free webinars and the free services and the cutting corners? Are you investing in yourself? Look at it like this. The more seeds I plant, the more fruit will, bloom, right? So you cannot expect all of this, stuff, and you didn't plant anything. And that abundance mindset you're talking about, Phil, and that scarcity mindset can come from our childhood, right? If you grew up in a household where they were writing names on food, or they were adding water to the juice to cut it, and stuff like that, that stays with you. And you take that into your business. But that's not where you want to be anymore. You want to think to yourself, how can I get more juice? Well, I'm going to have to make this investment and then I can get more juice. It's a change in how you think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That is so like monumental in like how people think. Like that right there is truly what separates this therapist from that therapist, this life coach from that life coach, this doctor, so on and so forth, right? Like it's all about that packaging piece, right? And we actually had a joke like, you can't, be showing something and there's like the little like, logo from the company that you're using because it's a free, subscription, right? Like, no, pay the extra $5. And that's what I said in the post that I had, pay the $5, you would definitely see a lot of fruits, as you mentioned, come from it. Just to kind of give the listeners an idea, when I started my business, as I mentioned in Instagram, like I spent easily over $1,000 just building and branding, right? This was buying a suit. Here's the thing. I went to Men's Warehouse. I did not go to JCPenney's to get a suit. I went to Men's Warehouse, tailored suit, made sure that everything was tight, firm, and all that good stuff, right? Went to a professional photo shoot, pay for that, website, pay for that. There's these subscriptions that you have to pay for as a therapist, spend money on that. So I was easily, anywhere from like $1,500 to $2,000 already in the game. And there's something to be said about having some skin in the game, right? Once I've invested all that much or all that money, I was invested. There's no way I was going to let that falter, right? And since then, that was a little over a year ago. Like I've easily made that money back and then some, right? So it's all about investing into your brand. Just like you invest in Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple, you are a company too that you need to invest in as well. All right. So I know people have the Netflix, the Hulu, and all this other stuff. Take one of those things off, get you StreamYard, get you Zoom, use Canva, right? Use all of these subscriptions for your benefit, because it's that packaging and that branding that's going to set you apart. Now, I do want to stay on brand investing, right? Because I looked at your fees, right? Like I believe you charge anywhere from 150, 175, somewhere in that ballpark, right? I want to say maybe 175. Like, what are people getting when they see someone like a Coach Sen? What do people get for their money?
So first of all, that's a shift in thinking as well. Usually people think to themselves, what am I getting? And they think to themselves, how much time? And it's okay, because we're all conditioned to think that way. I thought that way too. what you're really paying for is changing your mind in such a way that you change your life. It's a transformation. So I know people throw that word transformation around, but if you start believing in yourself, right? I'll give you a specific example, right? And I don't remember how much this person charged, but it was kind of like they wanted to charge a certain price and they were afraid to set those prices. And I even went through this myself, right? They were afraid to charge certain prices. And we worked on changing their mindset about money. I actually have a post on my social media about money, right? So once you change your mindset about asking to do somebody's hair for $300, and you can easily say it's $300 without feeling guilt or shame or nervous or trying to backtrack or give a discount. When you do that, you set for life. You've paid for a transformation that you now have for life.
Gotcha. That's deep, man. Because us as therapists, so any therapists that are listening, I know you spent thousands of dollars, right, on your education, on that degree. If anything, I know you spent at least $1,000, like from testing, supervision, all that other stuff, right? Like, it's okay to ask people to pay what you are worth, right? And I think that goes back to core values, self-love, like thinking what is your value, right? Because at the end of the day, you're giving someone a chance at a new life, right? Thinking back to that lady whose life you changed, about the cruise ships. She was a lawyer. She had a family, all that good stuff. She'll probably tell you or anybody that's listening, she'll pay it again, right? Just to have a piece of this life that she's chasing. And it's all about being, again, authentic to who you are. If being an entrepreneur is authentic to your beliefs and who you want to be, you should go for it, right? Like, I know, and again, it goes back to that mindset. We are conditioned to think that, money is a sacred thing that, we should hold close to the vest. But at the end of the day, and I started to see this more myself, it truly is a tool. It is a tool that can give you more tools, more access to spaces and things that you never would have thought you would have had access to. So as we begin to wrap up, I do want to touch on this one thing that you did with me back in that restaurant, which I said was, very powerful. It changed my way of thinking. It's about manifesting, right? Business manifesting. Can you tell the audience what that is, and maybe even walk them through it a little bit so they can have something to take, so they can have that to take away from this episode?
Okay. I didn't even remember we did talk about that. We talked about so much. Manifesting. We all know how to manifest. We just forgot how. Mm-hmm. When we are children, no one has to tell us how to play make-believe. No one has to convince us that there is a Santa Claus. No one has to convince us that anything, right? We just say to ourselves when we're kids, when I grow up, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get that house. I'm going to get that car. I'm going to whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know about you, but I know for me and even for any little kids that I've been around, no one has to tell them how to do anything like that. They're manifesting what they want, and sometimes they get it, mm-hmm. Right? So when you think about manifesting, it's not overly complicated, right? For people who want to go deeper into understanding manifesting, they could watch The Secret, which is about the law of attraction, to understand what it is. It's all about visualizing what it is that you want, like seeing it. I want this thing. Does it have to make sense in the moment? No. And I think this is where adults get tripped up, because when we grow up, people start telling us, be realistic. How are you going to make that happen? That'll never work. There's already 200 therapists. That's saturated. And it stops us from that manifesting. So when you get to this point where you feel blocked, remember that you know how to manifest. You probably have done it at some point in your childhood, growing up, at some point in your life. I know I did. And then when you remember that, right? Choose to sit still. We do not sit still. And I don't mean sit still with your cell phone or on social media. I'm talking about just sitting still. Allow yourself to be quiet and silent. Allow yourself to actually see what it is that you want. If you want to have a business, see yourself working in that business, doing exactly what it is that you want to do. People thought I was crazy for wanting to have an online therapy practice. And they were like, "You sure? You don't want to have an office?" And I was like, "No, I don't see myself in an office. I see myself online." And I ended up online because when you start manifesting, you go towards that vision. You make decisions based on that vision. You start seeing opportunities aligned with that vision, and that's how it actually ends up happening. So, with manifesting, you can start writing actually a manifesto. I see myself in this business doing XYZ. I'm thankful that I have 5 clients and whatever. Manifesting doesn't happen overnight, but it can and it does happen. That's why you see people doing vision boards. But when they understand how it's all linked and connected to law of attraction, to your energy, to your decisions, you're like, "Oh, I like this manifesting. This is actually working." Now, I don't remember when you launched, but you did a lot in a short period of time, Phil, from when I met you. You did like
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. What's funny is this week was like the first week, or maybe I'm gonna say last week, I really had to turn clients away, which was amazing, to tell people, "Hey, I'm booked. I can't really see you. Here's a referral to someone else." Right. And, first off, thank you again for that. But, to touch on what you said, I think what was so powerful about it is that I saw a red Camaro, right? Or I thought about red Camaros, and I'm gonna tie that together. I was in a session with someone, and they were telling me about how they found themselves being pessimistic all the time, always thinking what if, right? And I told them, like, "Hey, instead of thinking what if we change our thinking and think, what could happen, in a positive term?" And what I told them was like, "Hey, you ever notice when you buy a new car, like a red Camaro, because you think there's no red Camaros out there on the road, out there on 95? As soon as you buy that red Camaro, you're going to start seeing every red Camaro that comes your way. And the reason why is because it's on your mind, right? If success is on your mind, if, certain lifestyle has been manifested in your mind, you're going to start to notice little bits and pieces of evidence that is slowly starting to come true." So it comes back to, those core beliefs, as you mentioned earlier in the show. It comes back to, planting those seeds in your head, right? And you'll slowly start to see these things. And I think that is a part of that law of attraction, right? Like, you have to first see it, almost like feel it, believe it, so on and so forth. So I'm gonna ask. I got one more thing. Entrepreneurs and burnout, right? I know you talk a lot about managing stress, self-care, so on and so forth. So, for those entrepreneurs that are listening, and I can take away from this as well. Lately, I've been so busy. What would you say for entrepreneurs who are, feeling burnt out? They need to release some stress, so on and so forth. What would you say to those people?
So I would say to those people, be very, very aware of where you are on that line of burnout. As we know, entrepreneurs are very impacted. Their mental health is very impacted. Dr. Michael Freeman had a research study, and he discovered that 49% of the entrepreneurs in that study reported having one mental health disorder at some point. So basically, what that's saying is entrepreneurship, with all of the uncertainty, all of the changes, the risk involved, all of these different things, right, that are heightened. At some point, you might deal with anxiety, depression, or something else like that. Now, it could be mild, but the problem is when you have burnout and then it gets more serious and you're not managing it. And here's the catch 22 for entrepreneurs, right? We can work really well under pressure. We can perform. We're able to do what some others aren't doing. We can take risk. We can stay up all night. We can work for 12 hours. We can do all these things, which are great for business, but they're also detrimental to our mental health. So we have to be very careful, because what happens is now you try to compensate for that, And some of the things that we do might not be healthy for us to compensate for where we're falling short in the burnout. I know for myself, I'm able to see burnout coming and I'll be like, I need to take a day off next week. I'm not scheduling anything next week. Or even this year, I think I shared with you, I took off several weeks. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I need to take off several weeks. I need to focus on me and myself. Otherwise, I'm going to go into a depression. And we know about the Kate Spades. It was TT Branch from Miss Jessie's. We know about Robin Williams, like actors and actresses who were very successful in their careers, but still took their lives. And it's like, how do you go from here to there? So, my thing that I would tell people is be very aware of what you're feeling and trust it. And when you hear it, right? Do something. Don't just be like, I feel burnt out, but I'm gonna keep going. We did this live, Phil and I, should I be hustling or healing? Pay attention. Do you have to be hustling all the time? No. If you learn how to run your business in a certain way, you actually do not have to be hustling all the time.
Exactly. I read a book about it's called the 10 or maybe it was 8 pillars of wealth. And one thing that I took away from that is being able to create systems that work for you. And I'm pretty sure you touched on that for a lot of your clients. You know, it's all about building those systems so that you can take a day off, right? The business doesn't stop when I take that day off versus some entrepreneurs, when they take off, the business takes off. So for those people that are listening, you know, the 10 pillars of wealth, I think that'd be a great book for you. So Coach Sen, thank you. I really appreciate it. And before we wrap up, speaking of books, I want you to be able to provide some resources, whether it's a book, a website, an app. Also, feel free to take a moment to talk about the Conquer Network a little bit more in detail. So if those people that are listening, they can go check that out. But any and all resources, if you can share that with the group.
Great. If you are an entrepreneur, don't think that school is over. School has just begun. You need to be reading books for personal development. You need to be reading books on business development, on marketing, on whatever. So don't think like I'm gonna start a business and I could wing this. Like you're going back to school. So I like that you have that. So one book that I would suggest, since we've talked a lot about mindset, entrepreneur mindset, and developing that foundation, is The Big Leap. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. We don't have time to go into it, but it talks a lot about the upper limit problem, which I notice a lot of entrepreneurs experience this, where they're thinking they have a ceiling for how much they can make or what they can do or what's possible for them. So you need to remove those limits. And this book helps you work through that thinking that you have so you can take that big leap. Because for many people it's not little, it's a huge step in their lives. And if you are dealing with a hard time with being vulnerable, with impression management, with imposter syndrome, I suggest Brene Brown, The Gift of Imperfection, and probably any of her books. She has Daring Greatly, I think, and The Courage to Lead, all these great books about tapping into yourself and using the power of vulnerability, because you don't have to be perfect to start a business or run a business. You have to just be real. Those people are the most successful. Think about the people you connect to online. They're real.
Wow. I'm definitely going to check out The Big Leap. That is, I even love the name of it. So The Big Leap, those people who are listening, definitely check that out. And Brene Brown, she is amazing. She's a social worker. She's a therapist. She's great for any other therapist to follow. Check her out on Instagram. She's not paying me to say that, so you can tell that it's real. Check it out, man. Definitely. And we didn't touch on this, but those people again that are dealing with like that time management. Here's another book. I haven't read it, but I've kind of gotten the clip notes. The Miracle Morning. You want to check that out. It kind of helps you tap into what Kobe calls this Mamba mentality, right? Kobe has been known for getting up at 4 a.m., finishing by 7, all that good stuff. The Miracle Morning. Check it out. So with that being said, thank you everyone for checking us out. Again, the podcast. Therapy helps everyone. That's something that I truly, truly believe. And Coach Sen, thank you for helping me show why entrepreneurs should seek therapy and focus on their mental health. So before we go, how can people reach you?
So people can find me all over social media as Ask Coach Sen. So I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all over as Ask Coach Sen. You can find my website at senecawilliams.com. And for the Conquer Network, this brainchild or new baby of mine is a supportive community, an emotionally supportive community for entrepreneurs, for women who want to start businesses, but they have felt alone in the process. It gives me an opportunity to also bring other professionals in business to speak to them through live Conquer classes, through live group coaching, and Conquer sister circles, where you get a chance to be in community with others. Because the main thing that I hear from entrepreneurs, besides I'm afraid of failure or I have anxiety about being in business, is I feel alone. My friends don't get it. My family doesn't get it. My partner doesn't get it. I don't have anybody to talk to. I don't feel like I get support. So that is actually one of the key things that helps entrepreneurs in leveling up, is having that right community, an emotionally supportive community. That's not telling you to just hustle, 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 but they're helping you learn how to hustle and heal at the same time.
That dichotomous thinking, right? You hit the nail on the head. That is a great way to end the show. Coach Sen, thank you. I appreciate it. And also, all the things that you're doing is amazing. I just checked out your website, I want to say yesterday, and it looks amazing. So, man, congrats on everything that you've done so far.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
No problem. No problem. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for stopping by, checking us out. This podcast will be on Spotify. It will be on Apple Podcasts and many more websites. Thank you, and I appreciate it. All right. Bye.